let's look at how we can add a little bit of more intricate detail to the center part of the medallion. So let's say that we want to add sort of an embossed shape in the center here. And let's say that we either want to make it sort of filled with enamel paint, or maybe it's glowing, something like that. And so we'll do maybe a couple of different variations of this. So let's go ahead and just add a new paint layer here on our gold texture set. And then I want to come down and look at the alphas. And I want to choose an alpha that I want to put as a shape in the center here. And so this person is sort of a bird-like race. And so I'm going to choose maybe a couple that are, I feel like would go along with that theme, or kind of fit with that aesthetic. And so for this first one, I'm going to use this circular triangle. And what I want to do is I want to add it to my brush. So if I just go ahead and double click on this, it's going to add that to the brush. If I right click, you can see where that is added. Right under the alpha, you can see that circular triangle listed there. Now we can come down and figure out what we want to actually affect. So we want to push this into the surface, and then we want to create, let's say in this case, we want to create kind of an enameled paint kind of a look of a color. And so let's actually go ahead and choose our base color. So let's make it kind of a red, something like that. And on the height, we'll go ahead and push that in a little bit. So we want it to be pushed down into the surface a bit. The roughness, we want it to be a little bit rougher. And you can see the effect as you go through. You'll see got kind of the preview of what that's going to look like. So actually maybe something like that. We don't want it to be metallic, and so we'll go with that. So once you've got that, you can come in, and now we can actually resize this without going into our settings, which you could do here as well. You could resize it here, but you can also resize it with some hotkeys. So if I hold down Control and use the right mouse button, I can resize it to get it kind of in the center there. If you want to rotate it, you can just keep the Control button down and use the left mouse button to rotate that around. And then I'm just simply going to click, and you can see it's pushed into the surface and it has that red color. Now it's not really covering enough of the surface to really get the effect of the material. We come in here, I'm going to push it in a little bit more. I'm going to darken up the color a bit, and let's take our roughness, something like that. And so we can start to add detail that way. Using an alpha with whatever shape, you could obviously bring one of these in. It's just a black and white image. You could use your own, create your own. Now right now, and you can see the reflection on that, we're able to get a different kind of reflectivity, okay, the roughness on that. But what if we wanted to be a little bit more techie, and maybe we wanted to actually emit light? Well, we can do that, but we have to add another channel. So if you go through and you create some variations and you want to try one that's sort of a glow effect of this, let's create a new layer, and we'll make it a paint layer. We need to go ahead and modify this a little bit. So with our gold selected, we're going to go into the texture set settings. All we have to do is come down to channels, and I want to add a new channel. So I'll click the plus, and I want to add an emissive channel. So now on this new layer, we're going to go get another alpha. And so let's come down, and actually I'm going to use this arrow right here. All right. And I'm going to rotate it around so it's kind of pointing straight up, maybe something like that. All right, let me turn off this first layer. The flexible way that you work with layers is really nice because you can really try some different things. So here, let's go in, and I'm going to change this base color to more of a blue. And you can see that it still has a roughness, so it's getting it's receiving light and reflecting light. And so what we want to do is make this instead an emissive. And so we'll turn on emissive, and if we come down here, turn on the emissive. Now when we go in and select our color, I'm going to go in and select this blue. Okay, we can take our roughness all the way up. And now the interior of this is going to sort of glow or have that glowing kind of a look. Okay, so now when we come in, and I'm going to actually push this in a little bit more. So get it lined up, and let's create one. And so that will actually let you create kind of a glowing effect where you've got an emissive look that can give you a little bit more of either like a magical look or effect, or more of a techie look or effect. And again, if you don't like that one, you can go back to the other one. You can kind of see the difference where that one looks a little bit more like it's been painted in versus this one that is a little bit more kind of illuminated. If you don't like the placement, you can always go in, either get rid of this. You could go in and erase everything, add it back in, maybe if we were a little bit too low. And you could continue to add to that as well. For instance, you could just load in another alpha if you wanted to add something, maybe a circle to the center or something like that. Or if you had one like this, you could come in here and scale this down and add something like that. Okay. Again, you can design your own shape and bring it in as a black and white image, and then put any of those images kind of inside there. So the next thing that we want to do is to go in and texture the blue sash here. So we want to use kind of a repeating pattern, but we don't want it to affect the color necessarily. We want it to really be subtle and just affect the brightness. So we'll take a look at that. Now let's add some texture for the main sash here. So the sash is going to be on the body. And so I'm going to turn off, go to the body and then turn off the gold and the wood and padding so we can see what is happening. And so this is the part that we want to finish. And so that's, I think it's one of the last pieces. We've also got a gold band here that we can add, but let's concentrate on the sash. So we've got the jumpsuit group, the bone and skin base. So let's now add a new fill layer to the top. And this is going to be the color for the sash. And so let's add a base color, and I'm going to make mine kind of the same blue. And so I'll just drop this in for now, and we can change this in a second. Let's mask off everything but this sash. And we've got it separated on its own UV shell, so that's going to help us greatly. So let's go ahead and add a black mask, and let's go to our polygon fill, and let's choose UV shell, and we'll go ahead and add that. And so you can see that there. Now let's make the color kind of the same as this trim color. And so we'll go into base color, choose our eyedropper, and let's just choose that color. All right. And then let's come down to the roughness. And let's kind of increase our roughness a little bit. Let's turn up our metallic, so it's got more of a satin look. All right, so we'll get it something like that. Now, we want to have a pattern on this, but I want the pattern to actually drive the roughness so that it's maybe, or this is a little bit rougher, and then the pattern is a little bit shinier maybe, or glossier. And so we need to have the pattern, and then we need to know where to put the pattern. So we could add another layer, or we can also drop instead of choosing the roughness from the slider, we can drop the pattern into the roughness. So let's go to procedurals, and I'm just going to choose one of these procedurals in here, and feel free to choose whatever one that you like. Just one of these repeating patterns. I think I'm going to choose this fabric half circle, circle half, and I'll go ahead and click it and drag it into the roughness. All right, so let's go ahead and go into the parameters of that. Let's increase the tiling. And so you can see that it is working. And I'm going to increase this to maybe 32. Let's actually take this down a little bit. 20, let's say. We can also change the border width, which will make those thicker or thinner. All right. But you can see that right now, because this is a black and white image, we've got really, really glossy and really, really rough. And so what we need to do is sort of dial those in based on those extremes. So to do that, we will go ahead on this layer, add a levels, and we're going to choose roughness to what we want to change. And then we have a black and white here. So I'm going to go ahead and take this black and dial this up to the level that we want for this part. So it's probably going to be something like that, maybe. Actually, probably maybe a little bit more. And then we'll bring this one a little bit closer and grab it a little bit closer to the other one. Okay, we just want to be able to see it. But instead of driving the color, it's driving the roughness. Now we can go back in and repeat that maybe a little bit more so we can see it across the surface. And that levels will give us that kind of adjustment so that we can really dial in what the white is driving and what the black is driving in terms of the roughness values. So you can use those procedurals not just in color, but in any of these channels, and they will drive those. But you may have to add some adjustments like this levels to get the actual values the way that you want. If we want to try to emphasize the grooves here, we can also bring in another layer. We'll add another fill layer to the top. And let's go ahead and turn all these off except color. And then in the color, I'm going to go ahead and click on curvature, and let's bring in the body curvature map. All right, and then I want to mask this off, only affect this part. And then let's do an overlay, and then I'll dial in this visibility a little bit more. It just kind of darkens up the inner parts there. All right, we can turn the rest of our pieces back on. So we get a nice pattern on that wraparound sash. And if you don't want it to be the exact same color, we still have the flexible workflow in the way that we can just come in here and really quickly modify that color so that it's a little bit different. So we can maybe make it a little bit lighter. We could adjust the hue a little bit or make it more one way or the other so it's not exact. And we're able to make all of those changes before we actually export any of these textures. So it's a really nice way to work. So once we've got our main sash textured, let's go ahead and add some texture to this. And this is just flat pieces of geometry, but I want to add some sort of wrinkles to this and make it look a little bit nicer than this flat piece. So we'll do that next.